Wants the truth. The next Geraldo Revira Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, Geraldo Revira.
Thank you, Scotty. Hi, everybody. What's up? Some of my guests today say that the answer to the question is UFOs. UFOs carrying visitors from faraway planets, different worlds. Thousands and thousands of people, as you know, say that they have been in contact with extraterrestrial beings. When the followers of Marshall Applewhite in the Heaven's Gate cult committed suicide thinking they were about to meet a UFO traveling in the wake of the Hale-Bopp comet, we decided that the time had come to do something we had not done for years on this program. It's to give serious consideration to the very real question so many people have of whether there really is life beyond Earth and whether those people out there, if they exist, have ever been here to visit. Now, my first two guests, Carrie and Michelle, have absolutely no doubt about that. Both these ladies claim to have had numerous face-to-face encounters with UFOs. What was your first, Carrie?
My first encounter that I recall was when I was about 5 or 6 years old, when I was sleeping, sound asleep one night, and I suddenly awoke to what I saw was a blue light that was pulsing and flashing right on the ceiling above where I slept. And it was down by my feet, and then what happened at that point, then it was maneuvering up to where it was just right above my face. And then at that point, when it got right above my head and I was watching this thing, I screamed for my mother. I was, "Mom, what is that light?" You know, I was terrified. And usually one would think that, you know, being a parent, when their kid wakes up scared during the middle of the night or is crying, they would usually rush to the bedroom and, you know, comfort them and say it's all right. I just heard my mother's voice yell back at me, "It's nothing but a dream, go back to sleep." And that experience always sort of loomed in the back of my mind.
Did you have any adult experiences?
Yeah. I didn't uncover this experience, though, until I was about four or 5 years ago, at which point was when I lived on Long Island, and it was about 10:30 at night, and I turned out the lights, and I was preparing to go to sleep, and I crawled into bed, and at that point, I still had my eyes awake, and all of a sudden, there was this ball of white light. It was, you know, probably about maybe 4 inches in diameter that just sort of quickly flashed off to the right-hand side of my bed. And then, at that point, it was just sort of like a very subtle mental message that it wasn't my saying it to myself. It was like somebody was comforting me and saying, "It's nothing, just go back to sleep."
Let me ask you some very specific, short questions. Give me pointed responses. Did you ever see any beings? Well, have you physically been in the same room?
I have seen them physically,
Have they touched you?
Yeah. They've touched me. I've seen them right up face to face.
And what did they look like?
The ones that I have seen have been about 4.5 feet tall. Very spindly necks, large bulbous heads with the large black eyes.
The common one is that we've seen drawn with the eyes, the funny eyes, but the skinless torso, no clothing.
No clothing.
And when they touched you, what did they do?
I just remember it was like, you know, if they touched my arm and they just moved me from place to place. I just remember that their skin felt very cold.
You're engaged now. What does your fiance say about this?
He's a believer as well, and he's had experiences himself. He is more apt.
Well, did he see the same creature you saw?
He says he tells me that he hasn't seen any beings. He more or less goes from feelings. And
do you think he'll return, this little critter?
I had an experience over a month ago.
Wow.
Where
wish you would have brought him. You would have had a real scoop.
My experience is, it's funny that, you know, you bring my fiance into the picture, where I remember the experience and my fiance being there, and I defended the situation. I told this thing to get the, get the bleep out of the house. And I said, you don't belong here. And I remember my fiance being there, and he was just sort of like, I remember his eyes being open, but it was just like he was sort of like in a transfixed state at that point. And so he didn't really realize what was going on.
You know, Carrie is certainly not alone. I said thousands. It could be tens, it could be hundreds of thousands of just people here in the United States who believe in the UFOs. We've put together a video package. You will be amazed at some of the high and powerful positions occupied by people who claim to have seen UFOs. Take a look.
The late President Richard Nixon admitted that he had once had a close encounter. In 1969, Jimmy Carter and 10 other men saw a bluish and reddish object in the sky. Later, though, it was identified as the planet Venus. In 1987, the former President Ronald Reagan proposed that the U.S. and the Soviet Union unite against the common enemy.
Perhaps we need some outside universal threat. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
The president nearly made contact, according to his pilot.
We started moving toward it. It followed us just off the wingtip, probably a half a mile or a mile. And when we started turning toward it, it paralleled our flight, and then it just took off.
It's not too surprising, I guess, that the actor William Shatner, Star Trek's Captain Kirk, is also a true believer. Muhammad Ali champions the alien cause, having seen 16. Jackie Gleason saw an alien in London and another in Florida. He believed they were studying humans. John Lennon was once buzzed by a flying saucer on the balcony of his New York apartment.
I just sort of turned round, and there was this thing about 100 foot away and very low, below the height of the buildings, you know? And I was thinking, what is it? I think, it's a flying saucer. It must be a flying saucer. You know? But you don't want to face it, you know? Even if you're a freak like me, you still want to think, oh, it's a balloon or something, you know? You don't want to really think that it's something else.
New York was also the place where Mel Torme saw a fast-moving object practicing loops and figure eights in the sky. When Elvis Presley was born, his father recalled a strange blue light that lit up the house. Jimi Hendrix interviewed a man who said he was an extraterrestrial for one of his albums. Jerry Garcia of the Grateful Dead suggested that the Great Pyramid would, quote, open up and flying saucers pour out. And David Bowie saw so many UFOs when he was a kid that he produced a magazine about them.
Michelle, now in your case, the UFO is a lot less benign than it was in Carrie's situation. First, back in the 1970s, you report that you were sexually assaulted by
That's
an alien.
correct. That experience, I didn't have a conscious recollection of it until 1995.
So this was also a retrieved memory?
Parts of it, yes. I did have flashbacks that caused me to investigate it.
Now, what about these puncture marks that you allegedly received much later from the alien?
I've had different marks. I've woken up with them, not knowing how I've gotten them. The puncture marks, I've had a set now of 4 puncture marks on my upper left eye, twice on my right arm, once on my left arm. And I have no idea how they got there.
May I ask if your creature looks like Carrie's creature?
I've had experiences with more than one type.
My next guest looks familiar. It's because he is a former member of the UFO cult. Sawyer is the name he goes by. A member of Heaven's Gate beginning in the 1970s. He dropped out in 1994 because he decided that he did not want to take his own life. Sawyer, do you believe that your former colleagues went off in space on a UFO?
Yes, I believe they're on some kind of craft that we would not be able to identify.
This is what I don't get. They took their lives in Rancho Santa Fe, San Diego. How did they get there? How did they get to the UFO?
Well, of course, while we are in a physical body, we're not going to be conscious necessarily of the mechanism for doing that. But it doesn't seem too complicated to think in terms of your spirit being a physical entity itself and that we can't see it, but it leaves their body, and then it could be easily just walk on board, or like you say, beamed up, or some method of transportation.
But as you sit there today, you believe those 39 are on board a spacecraft?
Yes, but we don't know that when we die and leave our bodies that we all don't somehow get on some kind of spacecraft to be taken somewhere else temporarily, or it's a big mystery.
If you believe that, why didn't you go for the ride?
It's a good question. I'm still at times wondering that, because I was very prepared to do so. I don't know. I had some senses of self-preservation when we first started talking about taking our lives. And I don't know if that was a response to something else I was being called to do, or maybe to talk to you all.
Maybe. Well, I'm delighted you're here and not there.
Thank you.
I mean, you can applaud that. I'm holding an official Air Force Regulation 190-1. On the 1st of April, during a news conference, a Pentagon spokesperson declared that the government, the United States government, I don't know if you've heard this yet, the United States government has formally ceased. They have stopped investigating UFO sightings based on a lack of evidence. Here's what they said on April 1st.
We cannot substantiate the existence of UFOs, and we are not harboring remains of UFOs. I can't be more clear about it than that. So you might ask, why did the United States Air Force stop after 22 years investigating? Why did it stop investigating reports of UFOs? It did so primarily because it didn't find that there was any threat to the nation's security, and it didn't find that any of these were extraterrestrial vehicles as claimed by many of the people who made these calls. It just was not a good way to use the taxpayers' money.
They investigated 12,500 reported sightings. 95% of those were natural phenomena: meteors, satellites, aircraft, trick lighting, balloons, weather conditions, reflections of planets, just plain hoaxes. Of the very few that remained unexplained, according to the Air Force, this is a quote, "There was no indication of a technology beyond our scientific knowledge, or that any sighting could be considered an extraterrestrial vehicle." Are they still covering up? I don't know. When we come back, I will put all these questions to a man who really has walked on the moon. He's one of our heroes. He flew on Apollo 14, getting his view from outer space on whether indeed we are alone in the universe. UFO, yes or no? Back in a flash. Stay tuned. It was over 25 years ago. Apollo 14 astronaut Edgar Mitchell became the sixth man to walk on the moon. Dr. Mitchell, a retired U.S. Navy captain, is the founder of the Institute of Noetic Sciences. He is the author of The Way of the Explorer. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the American heroes, Dr. Edgar Mitchell. Welcome, please. Nice to see you, Captain. How are you doing? Welcome aboard. Have a seat. Thank you. You were up there, Captain. Are they up there? Do you have company?
I haven't seen anybody up there.
You haven't seen anybody? What do you think? Are you open-minded?
Oh, very open-minded.
Why?
This universe is too strange, too magnificent, too wonderful that we're alone. We're not the only ones.
Did you hear Sawyer explain that he believes that his colleagues and in the Heaven's Gate cult really did somehow transport their spirits, at least, to the UFO trailing the Hale-Bopp? What's your reaction when you hear a story like that?
Well, I have a different model of the way the universe is structured than that. Actually, we've been living with that mind, body, physical, spiritual model for about 400 years. And it appears from all modern science that that's not really the way it's structured.
Hold on, we're asking questions from Sawyer, though.
Sawyer, did the cult put any pressure on you when you left?
No, I spoke to Doe, and he said, I guess you want to be more objective and leave for a while to see how you feel, and he gave me some money, and off I went.
Sawyer, I want to know what you thought about being in this cult, how you could think that taking your life and castration and everything was the way to go.
Did you, by the way?
No, I thought that way, yes. I was prepared for that.
That's a ride I'm sure you're glad you didn't take. But
yeah, that's true.
I'm sorry.
I don't know if I answered the question, but
no.
No, I'm wondering if any of you are on drugs or have done drugs in the past, and maybe these are hallucinations or something.
Well, for myself,
Michelle?
For myself, I grew up in the 70s. Of course, there was always experimentation. But a hallucination doesn't leave puncture marks and scoop marks and bruises and all kinds of marks on your body.
Sawyer, when you reflect, I think this is probably what the question was. When you reflect on the course of action you chose for 20 years of your life, do you think you wasted your time?
it's a good question. I can't imagine that I did because it doesn't serve me to believe that.
James McGahee, we have two former military men. He's an Air Force pilot, 30 years on the job, flying those big C-135s. Major, right?
C-130s.
130, sorry. Major, what do you think when you hear from Michelle and Carrie there, swearing that not only did they have some kind of physical encounter, but they were actually touched by a creature from another planet?
Well, the whole alien abduction phenomena took off in 1961 with Betty and Barney Hill, and then again in '87 with Light Years and Communion, other things like this. The phenomena really boils down to hallucinations, psychological phenomena, and some downright lying on the part of a lot of people.
Do you think Michelle or Carrie are lying to us?
They could be. I don't know. There's no way I can know what's inside their head. They may have really experienced something. I don't think they experienced abductions from another world, from aliens flying here. The whole UFO phenomena is a mythology of the space age. It really boils down to ignorance and superstition, and it's really sad in this century that we still are having to deal with ignorance and superstition.
Ladies?
I would have to disagree with you. I can appreciate your skepticism, though. Like I said earlier, there's nobody more skeptical than somebody that's experienced it, trust me. None of us wants to be a member of this group. It's not a club you want to join. I had to verify and validate it myself, which I did. Was it real? That's a very good question. I don't know. But
now,
this
James,
memory
you had no doubt
is
that
very
it was
real.
Unreal.
I have no doubt that it's not real, yes. Because when we're talking about science, we're talking about dealing with empirical evidence and something that can be verified. There is zero evidence that a spacecraft from another world has ever visited the Earth. Zero.
This couple says they have documented over 500 hours of what they believe to be extraterrestrial objects. We'll show their videotape right after this. UFO, yes or no? We're back, everybody. UFO, yes or no? Our guests, Karen and Jose Escamilla, tell us what's in the pictures we're seeing, Jose.
Okay, right here we're showing objects that we call rods, R-O-D-S. These are objects that are cigar-shaped. They appear to be a living entity of some kind. As a matter of fact, we have zoologists and entomologists looking at this particular object here, which it goes into the shadows there. It seems to be about a 20-foot...
Was that a guy skydiving?
Yeah, a guy's base jumping. But this is the first shot that we've received that has an object that is actually overshadowed by the rim of the cave. And we're speculating that this object may be about 20 feet in length. These objects travel at extreme velocities. They're appearing everywhere. We have video evidence that they're in places all over the United States. Mexico, we're setting up an expedition. And
this is fairly hair-raising video.
It's pretty, it's pretty dramatic stuff. And for the past 3 years, we've been accused of anything from hoaxing them on the computer, because I'm a producer and editor by trade. And what we're doing right now is, people like the skeptics and the military and things, they say there's no evidence that these UFOs are of extraterrestrial origin, okay? We've never, I have to correct you on your statement a while ago, we've never maintained that they're objects that we're videotaping are of extraterrestrial origin. We don't know that until we get solid evidence. What we do is we document the objects, and we're presenting them. Now we're getting teams of scientists that are going to visit sites where UFOs appear on a daily basis.
So, Karen, you shot that video? You actually shot that video?
Some of that, and I can see them, and I try to verbalize as I'm shooting the video so then I can find it when I'm scanning.
Look at this one. Look at that. What is that?
I did not shoot this. Stunt team.
This is a
out of
cruise
Mexico.
missile, Captain? What is that?
We don't know.
Yeah, the zoologists have no idea. They've ruled out insects. It has to be investigated.
All right, let's go to our Major the Skeptic. Go ahead, James.
Well, most of these videos, I can't say what these are because it takes time to analyze them, but most of everything that I just saw I could duplicate in about 30 minutes with a video camera in the studio.
Well, I've seen the work that you've done, and it's really not that... I mean, you guys can't... Are you accusing us of hoaxing? Is that what you're doing?
But the point...
Are you
accusing me of hoaxing this?
I don't know whether they hoaxed them or not. Billy Meyer, the famous Swiss UFO hoaxer, I think did a better job than this.
All right. Yes, sir.
So, what you're saying is you feel that you're accusing us of hoaxing this.
And not
is that what
even
you're saying?
that good a hoax, he said.
Right. You know the legalese. Are you saying that we're hoaxing this stuff?
I didn't say that. I said I
You're implying
suspect that they are hoaxed.
You're
videos,
suspecting that we are hoaxing this. Is that what you're saying?
I certainly do.
Well, we're not.
Okay.
I couldn't say that definitively without analyzing the video a little more.
Dr. Mitchell?
I have my attorney
I think in this day and age, I'm not accusing anyone of anything, but in this day and age, video of anything is very suspect.
There was a very popular program. Which was it, Sam? What was the program that said that they had analyzed
Strange Universe?
Strange Universe, and there was indeed a UFO tailing Hale Bopp. James has taken a picture. Donnie, you find the picture. In the meantime, let me introduce Sam Sherman, a UFO expert, independent producer also, who has brought his own clips from a production called Beyond This Earth. Roll it, and Sam, tell us what we're seeing.
In West Columbia, Texas, in November of 1995, we saw this luminous object, as about another 30 people saw it, hovering over these trees. And he shot 20 minutes of video, and this thing went up and down and sideways and seemed to be rotating and came over them, and another one joined
I tell you,
it.
James, that looks real to me. I mean, see the way it goes behind the trees? It's too cheesy to be fake.
Oh, it is?
I mean, to me it is. I mean, that's...
Well,
if you're going to fake it, you would be much more...
you see the twinkling effect there. That's acetylation in the atmosphere. It's hard to say exactly what it is without looking at it. It could have just been
roll it again.
A slightly out of focus. One way to make an object look bigger on a video is, or a film is simply to defocus it and throw it out of focus.
But see the tree line, as the video continues, you see the trees appear to be in focus.
It's fixed.
There.
It's fixed for a while there. You don't know. Like I said...
And you hear them chattering in the background about it.
I'm willing to submit
I don't know what
this.
it is. Obviously, it is either a light in the sky or a hoax, but either way...
It's not a UFO.
It's a UFO in the sense that it's something you don't know what it is,
right.
But it's not a spacecraft from another
world.
world.
It's an unidentified flying object.
I'm willing to submit the original tape of this to a laboratory.
What is it,
Geraldo.
Sam? Just tell us what it is.
It's some kind of an anomalous object flying in the air, demonstrating characteristics planes don't have or helicopters don't have. And the whole tape, 20 minutes of it, is amazing. I'm willing to submit that to a laboratory and have any skeptic come in and disprove it.
We'll be right back. Much more. Stay tuned.
Saw this.
Here's a photograph of Hale Bopp. It's a good photograph. James, you took this picture?
Yes, I took the picture. You can see the blue ion tail going up there and the dust tail coming out over here, caused by the material coming out of the nucleus, which is in the center of the bright area right there in the coma. And if you look at the photograph, you see the comet and lots of stars, but you do not see any UFOs.
You do see some... they could be stars here in the
Those are
tent.
stars, yes.
But was it an uncharted star, you allege?
There was... What started this whole UFO thing was an amateur astronomer in Houston had taken a picture of the comet, and he went to look at his program, a star chart program, and he noticed that there was a star or a bright object there that wasn't in the chart, and he thought, well, he got a little carried away and started calling it a UFO. And it turns out he just had the stars turned off and it was just a star, is all it was.
Yes.
Dr. Mitchell, you said in today's age that we need hard evidence.
I'm sorry?
Are you aware of any hard evidence, and if so, what is it?
As far as I know, no smoking gun evidence in the public domain.
There is this office memorandum Sam Sherman handed me. You might get a shot of this. I'll read it. Chris can get a shot. To Carol Tyler, Manager, Santa Fe Operations, from Brigadier General James McCormick, the Director of Military Application Observation of Phenomenon at Los Alamos Project. Los Alamos, the big nuclear facility. Reference made to your memo, January 13, 1949, subject as above, in which you inquire as to the agency which will assume investigative jurisdiction of phenomenon reported in the Santa Fe area. Does this mean, you think, Mr. Sherman, that they saw something back in 1949?
There's a larger report. As a matter of fact, while planning my movie Beyond This Earth, I got 6,000 pages of declassified documents, including many secret and top secret documents proving the military and the intelligence agencies, which we need to protect us, are investigating this phenomena.
Edwin, briefly, and now I'm going to get onto this other video.
There are very high-level people in government and military people who are now starting to talk about their personal experience. I have listened to most of these people.
What about John Glenn? He saw those little sparkles.
Well, even more directly than that. There are people who's had hands-on, first-hand experience. So, as I responded to the lady, in the public domain, there's no smoking gun evidence. But it is very clear now, according to the testimony of high-level military and government people, that there is smoking gun evidence in the private domain.
Sawyer, if the photograph really shows, as most of the photographs apparently show, as all the photographs, that there's really nothing behind the comet, how would you feel then? There's nothing behind the comet.
Well, it's inconclusive anyway, because just because our technology can't recognize it and see it doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
It's like the Klingons, they have a shield?
Well, you know, just think about it. You can take mirrors and reflect light. You can reflect it around an object. That is very primitive technology.
Okay. Now let's meet Michael Luckman. Michael, what'd you bring us?
Well, I brought a copy of a top-secret report that's been circulated.
Hold it right there.
To 1,000 world leaders, including Henry Kissinger and President Clinton. This is a report that was sponsored and paid for by Lawrence Rockefeller, the New York philanthropist. And the conclusion of this report, although very conservatively written, is that Earth appears to be being visited at this very moment by extraterrestrial spacecraft, and that there is a very elaborate government cover-up. I also happen to have with me this drawn by Jesse Marcel, the witness to the Roswell case
in
1947. These are Egyptian-looking type hieroglyphics. These were found. You don't find these on a weather balloon. I believe these were on a spacecraft. I believe Mr. Mitchell, as well as Gordon Cooper, subscribe generally to the idea that it was some kind of a spacecraft and that alien bodies may indeed have been retrieved in 1947 in Roswell, New Mexico.
Do you subscribe to that, Captain?
I'm open-minded. I haven't seen the evidence, but there's a lot of evidence pointing in that direction.
That there actually was a little critter retrieved in Roswell, New Mexico?
That's what people, again, I'm not a first-hand witness to this, but the people in government that I have been in touch with who are ready to tell their story say yes.
Well, all I want to say is, if that thing will come on my program during the May sweeps period, I will be very grateful. I will give him a chair right there. Right now, I'll take a break. We'll be right back.
Maybe you can zero it in on me.
Ted Loman is interviewed over 200 UFO experts as the host of UFO A to Z Talks. It's a cable show based in Arizona, seen in 32 markets. What are we seeing here, Ted? It's I see two bright objects in the sky. Now three, and I hear a very excited female voice.
This all started in the 7th of March.
Oh no, there's a sky full of them now.
Yes, and they just sit there.
Four, now they're in a row, and oh, this is pretty impressive.
It is impressive. Over 10,000 people saw this.
10,000 people?
10,000 people. Luke Air Force Base was scrambled and talked to. They said that at first that it was
what is that?
flares.
Look at that. Look at that. Whoa.
The newspaper came out and said it was flares.
Flares?
Flares. Bill Hamilton and Tom King, you can hear Tom in the background there, videotaped this. The following night, unbeknownst to them, in the same city, doing the same videotaping, a boomerang craft came over the city. There actually was 4 events that kind of centered around
Phoenix, Arizona.
Phoenix, Arizona, coming all the way from Kingman, Arizona, through Phoenix, and we even had reports of it down into Tucson.
2 of them.
They're not saying what it is. They're not saying it's extraterrestrial. What we're trying to do is find out and try to mask what it isn't. And it isn't typical aircraft of any sort.
Now, it certainly seems there's something on the video here. You're hearing the spontaneous...
Oh, yes, there's something on the video. I mean, even in a hoax video, there's something on the video. This is not hoaxed, obviously. But the way they're appearing quite obviously looks like flares for military flying at night.
But how do the flares all drop in all together like that?
Well, because they're dropped or fired from an aircraft.
Freeze.
That's just out of focus.
Back up.
That's what happens.
Back up.
Right there. That's what happens.
Back up. That's right there.
All that is.
That's no flare.
That's a defocus.
In fact, Luke Air Force Base.
That is a.
Flare.
Wait a minute. You take any point object. You ask your cameraman here. And defocus it, that's what it's going to look like.
But James, I'm with you. I don't think there's little green men.
There's no green
all
men
over
there.
the place, but that is not a flare.
But the point is, when a flare.
I've dropped plenty of flares myself. I've got a sailboat. I've fly
flares on.
I've been in 15 wars. It's not a flare.
Remember, these are
Geraldo, there's
flares on them.
Anybody on this panel is going to show that this man is going to agree with.
Wait a minute. The flares.
Wait a minute.
Flares on a parachute.
Geraldo, they hang in the air.
But they don't drop that way unless they're tied together.
They drop.
We showed video.
Dropped at the same
We showed video and pictures. This man put it down. He said they're all hoax. When he showed his, we didn't say anything. We have a lot more respect of what's going on in the field than this gentleman.
But
no matter what he is,
we
treat him as a hallucination.
Tim Crawford hails from Venice, California, founder and acting president of UFO Central Home Video. Give us an idea. How much is out there?
I beg your pardon?
How much is out there?
As far as information is concerned, well...
in terms of this video and photographic evidence?
Well, there are about 700 to 1,000 videos on UFO and related sciences. From watching all of those videos and absorbing that material, you essentially have 20 fields of study where people, like in any of the other sciences, specialize. And essentially all the material falls into 3 categories: the mythology, the folklore, and the science. And the most definitive evidence that conclusively proves that UFOs are real has nothing really to do with little green men, in all due respect to those other fields of study. Let's start with the most definitive material. Firstly, the NASA data from the probes that we've sent both to the Mars and to the Moon that show photographic evidence of ancient ruins both on Mars and the Moon.
Hold it, Edgar.
I've looked at all that, and it's just not there. I'm sorry. He's dead wrong, and has been perpetuating a hoax on the people. That's dead wrong.
The only thing that I might suggest is that, in all due respect to
he walked there.
Yeah, and they claim that it was on my flight, Geraldo, and I know it's not true.
Understandably, and so does that suggest that one individual can shoot down the data of an entire community of people?
Well, when the individual is so open-minded as to suggest that the physical universe may be broader than classically defined, and a man as esteemed as Dr. Captain Edgar Mitchell, the sixth man on the moon, I think maybe yes.
Well,
furthermore,
maybe
rare amongst us.
The information is on video for the entire world to see, and it's academically presented. But then let's point out the second of the 2 most incredible examples.
Wait a minute. Part of this came from my mission site. This is what it suggested, and it was suggested it was reflected in my visor, and that simply is not true.
Well, I mentioned the Mars and the Moon.
Well,
and frankly, the most compelling data is from Mars, more so. I mean, 400 million of our tax dollars went into the Viking probe, which circled Mars hundreds of times to capture pictures of the entire surface. And JPL researchers were the ones that brought these images to our attention.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is amazing in a nation of skeptics how believing we are. Put on the graphic of the surveys. 87% of us have at least heard or read about them. 12% believe we have seen one. 12% of 250 million people, that's an awful lot of folks. Tens of millions. 45% think a UFO has actually visited. 72% believe there is life, other life in the universe. 38% think the other life is something sort of like us. 71% believe the government is not telling all the government knows. And the government certainly has a track record of not telling all the government knows. And I'm being very kind. Some final thoughts right after this. Stay tuned, folks.
We're Montgomery. Edwards, Victorville area. This is the tower at Edwards. We have an object now. Open the seal. I can make out red and white flashing light. Confirm reports of some unidentified.
I don't know where the film comes from. The audio tape evidently recorded in or around Edwards Air Force Base. When, Samson?
7th of October, 1965.
Comment, James McGahee.
Well, after having flown airplanes for a number of years, one thing that needs to be clearly understood is that pilots are not trained observers of UFOs.
But you do admit the pilot thought he saw something.
Well, he may have seen something. But there's cases where pilots have chased weather balloons. There's cases where pilots have chased Venus.
Excuse me.
There was actually a case where a fighter pilot locked onto Venus and fired a missile one time.
This has nothing to do with this event.
No, I'm not talking about this particular
event.
one.
Make the point quickly,
I'm saying
Sam.
that this has happened.
100 people
and so
saw these
can
objects.
make mistakes.
100 people saw these objects on radar and from planes and from the ground. It's well documented. Listen to the tape. Call me and tell me what you really think. Don't comment when you know nothing about this event.
I don't know this particular tape.
That's right.
Commenting. Hey, did I say?
Yes,
did I say anything about this tape? I said pilots can make mistakes.
Yes, sir.
And as much as all this, we're all very skeptical about the whole thing, and the government made all these tests and watching the UFOs. Has there any been lie detector tests to especially people
I
who
have no
made
doubt
contact?
but that Carrie and Michelle, if given a lie detector test today, take a shot, would pass it. I think they would pass the lie detector test. Yes, ma'am.
Did any of these alien encounters or the joining of the cult happen at a time in your life when you were weak or vulnerable?
Well, in my case, the encounters or the experiences started when I was very young and have continued throughout adulthood.
Were you sort of seduced in college?
Seduced? I was 25 years old, and I was starting a musical organization, and I was building a house out of logs. And I had a lot of future in front of me, so it wasn't a matter of escaping.
You're building a log cabin? You're on drugs?
I was building a teepee out of logs. No, I wasn't on drugs.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Sawyer, do you ever think that people are coming back, and where were they going?
Excuse me?
Do you ever think that people
are they
coming
coming back, and where were they going?
Well, whether they come back or not, it's not for me to know, but where they were going, they felt they were going to an evolutionary level above human. It's not a specific planet.
One interesting question with all the people who are being abducted today, it's strange that they haven't stolen anything off the UFO. If they just bring back an in-flight meal, an in-flight meal would tell us everything about the aliens.
We'll be right back after this. Take it. UFO, yes or no?
That the aliens make contact with us. Yes, I do. There's been so much data of people being contacted by them. I do, and I think that the government has kept it a secret for a long, long time.
The phone lines at 1-900-8-VIEWER. All calls 99 cents a minute. Remember, you must be 18 years or older.
I'm Robert Arns with the law firm of Phillips & Associates. I'm a board-certified specialist in criminal law. Have you been arrested for a crime or charged with DUI? Have you called other attorneys only to find out that some require payment in advance before...
Promotional fees provided by...
Inventors, Invention Submission Corporation can help you try to patent your idea and submit it to companies. Call 1-800-288-IDEA for free information.
I'm usually pretty calm, but I hate mildew stains. I want them completely eliminated. And X14 is better than regular strength Tilex. That feels better.
Call Psychic Encounters to get 6 free minutes. And while supplies last, this Brazilian Power Crystal absolutely free. Psychic Encounters. You'll never know unless you call.
Freshen your breath with Crystal Breath, the amazing new breath freshener that freshens breath from within. There's nothing like the spearmint fresh taste of Crystal Breath.
First of all, let me say that we have, with our usual independence and energy and enterprise, confirmed Stoyer's story. His wife is pregnant, so we knew he did not go someplace. Thank you, sir. Congratulations. Secondly, Dr. Edgar Mitchell, really one of America's great heroes, the way of the explorer. His journey through not only the material world, but also the mystical world, and there really is one out there, I think. I also agree with our former astronaut and with the late great astronomer Dr. Carl Sagan in saying that it is highly unlikely that the extraordinary circumstances that created life on this planet did not also create life on some other planet. To me, that's simply a question of mathematics, of odds. There's billions of stars. There has to be at least millions of planets. Millions of planets means the odds are excellent that on some of those worlds there's also some kind of life. It may not be any kind of life that we would recognize as being related to our species, but there's probably something alive out there. Now, whether that life is sufficiently intelligent, organized, and evolved enough to travel in outer space and come vast, unimaginable distances to visit little old us here in tiny, faraway Earth, that's another question entirely. I hope it's true. I hope they've been here already. I hope they just keep right on coming. Let me also say that although I am a huge fan of the idea, I think of myself as very open-minded. I am also, sorry to say, totally unconvinced. But that's just one man's opinion. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye-bye. Thank you, everybody.